there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got some fun DIY craft home decor projects for you today. Like, I literally just thought that line up. I've never said it before in my life, so, you know, whatever. Just being silly. Also joining me are a few of my favorite sweet friends. I'll explain those details a little bit later. I'm sure we'll have lots of inspiration for you. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we're going to be working on some Pinterest-inspired fall home decor for our DIYs, and we're going to get started on project number 1. For this project, I found this pumpkin at Walmart. It is $7.44, but it's going to be for my own home decor. I love the shape of it. And I also found this cool looking yarn on clearance at Joann's for $2.47. Any yarn that you like will work for this project. The first thing I'm going to do is take the stem out, just set it aside for now, and it leaves about an inch and a half or so opening. And I'm taking a paintbrush here and poking it all the way through to the bottom, so I, keep that opening centered. And then I'm going to use my craft knife here and I'm going to dig that whole complete center out. Now, I probably didn't need to for the type of yarn I'm using, but I wanted to show you this process. So if you use regular, round yarn for this, then you know kind of what needs to be done. And again, it's about an inch and a half wide all the way through. Here's what it looks like. So if you're going to use regular yarn, what you're going to do is you can cut it in nice long strands because you're not going to get the skein through the center, and wrap it completely around and through the center. I'm just showing a little bit here. You just wrap it around just like this so it goes all the way through as you cover the whole pumpkin, okay? But for me, it's kind of a flat yarn, so I'm just going to start measuring here how long of pieces I need to go from one side to the other, but I do need that big opening because that yarn's chunky and I need that to fill the yarn, to allow all the yarn to fit in that center. And I'm just going to cut a few pieces here and show you just a little bit here using my Beacon Fabric Tack glue. I'm going to start in here and just kind of wrap from the middle section round to the other side. I kind of overcut my yarn, but that's okay. I can cut off the excess and kind of glue it in. And then I'm going to come around again, and you could probably use hot glue on this, no problem, using my Beacon Fabric Tack glue. And I'm just going to start overlapping this yarn here all the way around, again, cutting off any excess and then gluing it down into that opening on both sides, top and bottom. So I'll do about 4 pieces here. A nice, easy process. And you don't have to overlap it if you don't want to. I just wanted mine kind of overlapped. If you're using regular yarn, yeah, I guess same thing. You can overlap or not overlap. I think this yarn's really cool looking. And the shape of this pumpkin really allows this to kind of, show up. So I've got a few pieces in here. I'm going to do the rest all the way around off camera. And then here's what it looks like when it's done. Doesn't it just look so inviting? I just love it. So here I am painting the stem. Hindsight, I wish I kind of would have changed to a taller stem. You don't notice it as much, but that's okay. Just using some chocolate paint here and then some Waverly Wax antique stuff here just to give it a little bit of a differentiation. It's not just a flat brown paint. So I found this wood leaf garland at Walmart. It's like $4 and something, and I got it to use the leaves, so I'm going to take one off that I like. I will sand off the green off of one side, and then I'm going to use some of this jute twine I got at Joann's. Just a few things to start with here, and then I'm going to bring in some regular twine. I'm going to bring in, I end up using different pumpkins from Dollar Tree, a different orange color, but some, pumpkins from Dollar Tree, some moss here. Some of these I got at Hobby Lobby. And then some of these pumpkins from Joann's, these acorns from Joann's, just anything you have on, flowers from Hobby Lobby. Now, I thought I was filming, but I wasn't. All I did was, sorry about that, glue the pumpkin in, glue moss around it, and then, of course, gluing on, I curled that jute wire up around the stem, gluing that in. So here I am, I just kind of cut the leaf off so it fits here nice around that wire that I curled around the stem. Gluing that down, and then I've got a bow here, glued that on, and I decided to add some lights. I have these tiny little LED lights. I just kind of placed them on really kind of wrinkly so it kind of blended in with the moss, and this little battery pack just fits right underneath that. bow there and the loop of the bow, and you just twist it on and off. So it's kind of cool looking. But I'm just kind of leaving it, like I said, curly and loopy, like so it looks like it's kind of part of the moss. So I'm going to glue in this flower. These came from Hobby Lobby, bunch of flowers. I used it on a wreath project I did recently. And then here's the color of pumpkin I'm going to use from a Dollar Tree, gluing that in and gluing in these little fluffy orange things I like, and an acorn. A couple of these pumpkins I decided to add in. You get the bag of pumpkins at like Hobby Lobby or Joann's. Placing another little ball there, an acorn. Just kind of glue in where you want. Use picks that you want. I got a couple of twine bows here I tied together and just kind of glue that in between the flowers, and that pumpkin pick I glued apart, and I'm going to glue that in between the flower and the pumpkin. And then going to use some of this paper covered wire and these curly cues from this that I got at Dollar Tree, and the paper covered wire you get at Hobby Lobby. I thought the stem just needed a little bit more because it doesn't stand up good enough. And then I wasn't liking the bow. It wasn't very full. So I'm making some extra little loops for the facade that I tied it into a double bow, and I'm just gluing it right in underneath. Take my paintbrush and get that in there. And now it looks like I made a double bow. And then I'm just going to glue in these curly cue things, one on each side, and that makes this project complete. So let's see which talented YouTube artists I'm joining forces with today to bring you some fun fall inspiration. Today, joining me will be Lisa Marie, who is crafting My Best Life with Lisa Marie, Sandra, who is DIYs at the Schwoven's Nest, and Emily, who is Farm Charm Chic. I cannot say enough about the massive talent that these ladies possess in all their DIYs they come up with. They are so creative, so inspirational. I'm sure you're going to find tons of fall DIYs that you're going to want to add to your to-do list right now. I will have the link to all their videos in my description box, so make sure you check those out after you watch my video. With that said, let's move on to project number 2. For this project, I'm going to be using some salvage wood here. I already have cut 2 pieces for the back for stability. I will have a piece here I kind of cut like a slant on for a stem, and then I've got a base here, and then I've got 2 pieces for our pumpkin for the main body. What I'm going to do is go ahead and sand everything up and make it all nice and smooth. But before I do that, on the top piece of the pumpkin body, I'm going to take my jigsaw, I just do it off camera, and I'm just going to cut off this rounded edge area here. And this is what everything looks like after it's cut and sanded, ready to go. I love this, splits and things in the wood. They're just awesome for this rustic look. So here I am. I'm just using some wood glue for my 2 pieces on the back, and I'm just gluing them with space in the middle so that you don't see them from the front, and then I'll glue the pumpkin once those are set to the base. Now the pumpkin, those are like 2x4 size pieces of wood, just so you know what those, how thick they are. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the wood glue and glue the stem onto the front. While that's setting up, I've got this rusty wire here. I rusted myself. I'll put a link down in my description box on how to do it. It's really thin wire, but what I thought I'd do is just kind of make it look like barbed wire. It's the wire used from Dollar Tree. I wish it was a little thicker, but this works. So what I'm doing is just taking little pieces of wire and just kind of spacing in between, and then just wrapping it around like a barbed wire would, just like this, and then just kind of cut off the excess. And I just did like one long piece, and then later I need a little bit more, so I did another little short piece. In the end, this is what it looks like, and don't you love the rust on my fingers? But I thought it would just give the facade of that cute rusty wire look. So here's my pumpkin ready to go. Everything's all set. I even went ahead and added some nails in the back too, just to make sure it's nice and sturdy. And I'm going to use this from Dollar Tree. I took the star off the front. I'm going to use Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth, Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Terracotta, and then Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color chocolate for this project. For the terracotta, I'm just doing the front of the pumpkin, and you can see I'm not going to the edge. I'm just kind of staying in the center. Here's the chocolate I'm using. I'm doing the same thing on the stem. I'm just kind of staying in the center. And then what I'll do off camera once it's dry is I sand and distress it all up. I just want a hint of color. And then I'm using that drop cloth and painting the star, of course. Here's everything all sanded up. I'm using some moss here, my Fabri-Tac glue. I'm just going to kind of add it to the right side of the pumpkin here. And then I cut this leaf from these burlap leaves from Dollar Tree. I just kind of cut that shape out. And then I have this phrase that I printed on to some fabric from my cheapy little HP DeskJet inkjet printer. I don't know if you can do it all on printers, but I did it. I will have a link to my printable for this down in the description box for you, for these pumpkin patch words, bunch of different fall words that are, big like this. So if you want to print them out on cardstock, that kind of thing works great. And I'm just sewing on the fabric here just to kind of give it a little bit of personality. And then I'm going to pull on the threads around the fabric just to distress it up a little bit. And then this is what it looks like. Nice and cute, gives us our rustic look. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew on this burlap leaf as well. And on the burlap leaf, I kind of go around twice. It's really subtle. You don't see it a whole lot, but I know it's there, and it just gives it a little bit of personality. Here's what that looks like. What I'm going to do is take this, our little, facade barbed wire here, wrap it around the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of add a little glue down here and some pliers and kind of tuck it right up underneath a little ledge there so it's nice and secure, and just kind of wrap it up around that moss and around the stem a little bit, see where I want it, get my star into position just so it shows just a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and glue that star down. I'll add a little more barbed wire here in just a little bit. Nice and easy, real simple project. And then I'm just taking our little fabric quote, just kind of gluing it in two sides so that it has just a little space in the center. I don't want it flat on the star. I want it raised up a little bit. And I'm kind of gluing down that little barbed wire and that leaf. Go ahead and glue down a little bit of this mesh tubing that you can buy in a package at Dollar Tree. And then some pip berries here. I'm going to glue that down, all kind of right at the base of that stem there. And then I've got a twine bow. I'm going to glue that. I've got really long tails because I want to kind of let the tails go down the pumpkin, and then I'll glue those into place a little bit. Put them where I want them, kind of glue them up and under so they kind of just have that cute little whimsical look. And then I'm going to glue in, I've taken some fabric that I've ripped up. Now I know it's kind of a burgundy plaid, but burgundy works, right? We're going to add that here in a little bit. I'm going to add some more. Here's another little piece of barbed wire I made. I wanted a little bit more around the star. And then here's my ripped fabric I tied into a bow. It matches, it's fall. And I'm going to kind of glue these into position where I want, just kind of like I did the twine, so it's kind of nice and whimsical. I love how this turns out. Love how it turns out. Once I get that glued on, that makes this super duper cute salvage wood rustic pumpkin complete. Let's move on to project number 3. For this project, I'm using some of this fabric I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm just making a little slit in my fabric about 8.5 inches in, and I'm going to just rip down that fabric, and then I'm going to turn my fabric and measure another about 8.5 inches and cut a slit and rip that as well. So I have about, of course, a little ripped 8.5 inch by 8.5 inch square piece. You don't have to rip your fabric, you can just cut it into a square. I'm going to use these little treat cups I got from Joann's. They were $6.49, but I got them half off. I like them because they were stiff. If you don't have these, Walmart has these like jumbo cupcake liners that would work great. My inspiration for my handmade pumpkin was this one because I love how kind of thick it was on one end and thin on the other. So I'm just taking a big piece of paper. I shouldn't have ripped it. I should have left it on there. But I'm just kind of forming it because I grabbed the other little sheet here in a minute. I'm forming it into kind of that shape of a pumpkin. Thick on one side, thin on the other. This is kind of what it looks like. I know it looks funny, but I want this to look kind of beat up and, you know, rustic looking, of course. And then I'm just going to use my Beacon Fabric Tack glue and just start to wrap my little paper pumpkin shape in the fabric, of course. I'm kind of, you know, pulling and pleating the fabric up as I go around, and it'll just gives us that cute little rustic pumpkin like I'm trying to tell you I want to create, and so I am doing so right here. See the process all the way around, coming to the end. Just pull it up, no rhyme or reason, just pull it up and get it covered. The little wrinkles will help kind of give it that cute little, you know, segment shape type thing, segments in our pumpkins. Perfect. Had to cut a little excess off here, and then I'll get that glued in as well. Wonderful. Here's what it looks like once I get it all together. Cute, that looks cute. Thick on one end, thin on the other, worked perfectly. I like it. I'm going to use this Distress Oxide ink. You can get it at the scrapbook section, and it's just a brown ink, and I'm just using this little tool here to kind of rustic up my little muffin pan thing here, treat pan, inside and out. Just so this project is going to be kind of like a nice primitive looking project. This little tag I printed out onto some cardstock. I'll leave the font listed in my description box. I use my Microsoft Publisher, and then I sewed around the edges of it, and then I'm kind of distressing it with ink. Adding some Fabri-Tac glue in my muffin pan here. I'm going to kind of line it with some brown moss here I get at Walmart. And then I'm going to use cinnamon sticks here for a stem. I've cut it to fit as long as I want it. I'm going to glue it in. It'll kind of fall over, but then I'm going to add some more glue here and some more moss, and it'll kind of help that stem to stay up into place. Perfect. I love how this turns out. Nice primitive rustic looking little pumpkin. I've got 3 buttons here, 3 different sizes, so I can stack them, and I'm just taking some more of that ink, and I'm just kind of inking and distressing them up a little bit. We're going to use this on our tag here in a minute. Thought I'd just give it a little fun personality to it. And then I'm going to use, again, some of this paper covered wire you can get at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to take a big long piece, just kind of wrap it around the handle of a paintbrush to give us some squiggles. And I've got some rusty bells. Again, I rusted them myself. And again, that link will be in the description box down below. And I'm just kind of twisting them onto the end of that paper covered wire. All right. And then I'm going to come in. Here's a rusty safety pin. Again, you can rust it yourself. And I'm going to add the buttons on in order from smallest to largest. And I'm going to put it through the corner of the tag here and then into the center of a twine bow I made. Here's what it looks like. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue down our little rusty bell wire. And then this is just some other little rusty wire like we used in our Salvage wood pumpkin. I twirled that up, and I'm going to glue that in as well. Perfect. And we're going to glue down, this is some thin twine. I took 2 of them and tied a little bow. And then we're going to take the bigger twine tag ensemble and glue right on top. Perfectly cute. And I'm going to use this multi-purpose adhesive and some pumpkin pie spice. Make it smell good. I'm going to spray the adhesive on, shake on a little pumpkin pie spice. You could use cinnamon, of course, but it's a pumpkin muffin, so I wanted pumpkin pie spice. I'll kind of tap off the excess, and then I'll go ahead and wrinkle up the tag a little bit. I do add a little bit of that pumpkin pie spice off camera. You'll see that in the final looks. Distressing up that wrinkle a little bit more, and then I'll go ahead and glue the muffin to the little treat pan here, and that makes this project complete. Let's move on to our last project, number 4. For this project, I'm going to use these 2 different shape monogram pumpkins I got at Dollar Tree last year. I think now I saw on their website they have them without the monogram, so that would be nice. I've got the tops pulled off already, and then this pumpkin shape in my supply, I do not remember where I got that from, and then this sign from Dollar Tree. So what I've got here, I'm going to use some scrapbook paper here. These are all the papers I've picked out. You can kind of see them going in that burnt orange tones and brown shades here. I've got like 5 different patterns here I'm going to be using. And so what I've done to prep off cameras, I have sanded everything up around the edges, taken the bows off and everything. On the taller pumpkin, I'm going to use that centerpiece, but on the shorter one, I'm not, and everything is ready to go. So first thing we're going to do, Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color terracotta for those 2 pieces. And for this one, I'm going to be using the chocolate shade Dixie Belle chalk paint. And for this one, I'm going to be using my drop cloth shade Dixie Belle chalk paint, of course. Before I paint everything up, I'm going to go ahead and trace the front and back of all my pieces. I want to cover the front and back. You can see I've sanded around the edges of all my wood shapes because I do like a little bit of my wood shapes to show. I will cut and trace my paper so they are a little bit shy of the perimeter of each piece of wood we're using here. And I'll show you what I mean here. So I'm tracing out this one center shape. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to redraw the perimeter about 1/4 inch in. All the way around. This is what I'll do on all of my pieces. I'm just going to show you on the one here. Save a little time for you. I just like to do this. It just, allows the paper to kind of pop up off the wood a little bit. And then I will cut that new pattern piece out. Okay? And you don't have to do this. You can totally, so you don't have to sand your wood, you can totally just cover it edge to edge. And this is what it would look like when I go ahead and glue it on. Okay? So, got all those cut out. Now I'm going to come around and paint all my pieces here. So you can see I only kind of have to paint around the perimeter and the sides. Do a little bit of each of the colors. I love this terracotta shape or shade of Dixie Belle chalk paint. It's just so pretty. Kind of that rusty, but not real dark, but kind of rusty burnt orange shade here. I do a couple of coats on all of them. Now I'm going to come in with that chocolate shade of the Dixie Belle chalk paint. I used to have a supplier here that I could buy that from, but now I just go on Etsy and buy up what I need. And then my favorite drop cloth because it's kind of a nice cream shade of paint. So here's my papers. I've got them all cut. I want you to see kind of how they look all short, and you can see that little bit of perimeter paint all the way around. Just like that. And for my sign, it's so long, I chose paper that I could tape on the back, and once we get the quote on there, you can't see the seam. So I chose papers that I could seam together really nicely. So that's how I did that one. And then I take everything to the sewing machine, sewing on all my papers and stuff. I just sew on it like it's regular fabric. I use a size 9 or 10 needle depending on manufacturer. My stitch length is on 4, my straight stitch length, because that's the highest it goes. My tensions sit on 4. And I just use whatever color threads in my machine. Sometimes I change it out, but I usually go between like a dark brown, a cream, and a white or a black thread. Just kind of some neutral shades here. You can see how that looks. I think it just gives it a nice, subtle kind of country texture. If you're not a sewer, don't worry about it. You don't have to do that. So you can see here what everything looks like. Just sets it off a little bit. And then I'll take the open end of my scissor blades and I'll kind of start scraping around the edges of everything, of course. And especially papers like this cardstock has a white core, it really kind of sets it off. It's really nice, just kind of adds to a look to it. I'll do that on everything. I think I said that. Here's what it looks like with and without. So whatever your preference is, however you like it, you can decide how you want to do your papers. It looks great either way. So I'm going to just start gluing all my papers on except for the long sign. So I'm just gluing front and back all my papers onto all my pumpkins. Okay. I'll let you see all that process. And you don't have to cover the backs if you don't want to. You can just put paper on the front. You don't have to cover anything with paper. You can just paint everything up and leave them plain. That would look cute too. Sand it, distress it would look wonderful. Perfect. And middle pumpkin, of course, I glued down that center piece on there. And that's the only one, like I said, I'm going to use the center piece on because that's going to kind of be my middle pumpkin. I just said that, didn't I? Now I'm going to start decorating up my pumpkins a little bit using that wire from Joann's and some of the paper cover wire from Dollar Tree, just kind of wrapping it around the stems. I love to add wire coming up from the stems. I've got some of this macrame cord. I've got a whole supply of it now. Thank you to my sweet friends that sent me some of this. I love you. Adding some beads to it and kind of knotting off the end and smushing it so it looks really cute. Kind of tied that macrame string into that bow there. Did I say that already? Sometimes I'm thinking like 10 steps ahead and I forget if I said it already. Now I'm going to bring in some of this Excelsior. I think I ended up getting this at Joann's or Michael's, something like that. And I've got some burlap leaves here. You can see I've sewn around the edges just like I did on the other project. And I'm going to get some of this Excelsior on first. All three pumpkins are going to kind of have about the same thing on them, but just look a slightly different. And then I'll go ahead and glue the burlap leaf, one on this one. Perfect. And I'm going to add some of that mesh tubing from Dollar Tree. I love that stuff. I buy like 5 or 6 bags at a time. Add a little bit of this burlap trim also from Dollar Tree right over that mesh tubing. I tie that mesh tubing in a bow so it's easier to glue. And I've got about several pieces of thin twine here I've tied together in a bow, and I'll add that little macrame bow on top. And then this is another quote I have printed onto some fabric. I'll have the link in the description box for these particular cute fall quotes. Again, I just run them through my printer. I put tape on the edge of my fabric piece. I size it the size of paper. I use Duck Fabric by Waverly brand to because it's thick like canvas, to run through my printer, and with the taped edge, the rollers of the printer just kind of grabs it and prints on it. Not every printer is going to do it, and if that doesn't work, you can print it onto cardstock. And so then, of course, I glued that onto that wood slice, glued the wood slice on, and then those are little pumpkin putka pods, and I glued that to the center of the bow. Again, I'm coming here on the second pumpkin, the same thing with the Excelsior. I'll do 2 leaves on this one, adding in some little berries here. I think those are from Hobby Lobby. Any little picks and stuff you have, again with some twine, burlap twine from Dollar Tree. You can put anything in there. Ripped fabric here I tied into a bow. That's super cute. Decided to put the twine on top of that, or the burlap bow on top of that, then add some twine on top of that. add on top of that some cute little acorn picks here, and a little pumpkin putka pod right in the center. So they look uniform, but a little bit different. On to our third pumpkin, again with the Excelsior and burlap bows. Again, I'll do 2 on this one. So the center pumpkin only has 1 leaf to set it off, and the 2 on the outer edge have 2. Adding in some cute little pip berries on this one. These are the little picks there. You get them from Dollar Tree. They're cupcake picks. Here's the acorns. And then here's the pumpkins, and they also have sunflowers. And I just sanded that up just so it looks really, distress. And then I've got some crochet ribbon here. Thank you again to my other sweet friend that sent me some of this crochet ribbon, because ours has been out forever and I couldn't find it. I love you. Thank you. Just tied that in the bow, and I'm gluing that to the center. Again, another piece of that little burlap trim right on top, and another little twine bow on top of that. And then one of those little picks. I'm going to tuck that in there, and I think I tucked in a little wood leaf as well, and the little pumpkin putka pod right on top. Beautiful. And here's what they all 3 look like. So the pumpkin kisses kind of goes with our quote at the bottom. You'll see that in just a minute. So here's a quote. I did it on my Cricut machine. I will have the font in my description box. You could just use whatever font you want and just print it out onto your paper before you glue your paper on. I used to have to do that before I had an electronic cutting machine. That works perfectly fine as well. You may have to kind of split your quote up if you have a long sign, but you can print half of your quote on one piece of paper, half of your quote on the other piece of paper, and then cut that paper to fit your sign. So here it says, my thought process was, meet me at the pumpkin patch for some pumpkin kisses. So that's why I chose that little cute pumpkin kisses on that little wood slice. We're going to get this glued on here. And then I'm going to use some Gorilla Glue and Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here, and I'm going to glue my little pumpkins right on top of our long sign. So now you know why I chose a really long sign. I've already kind of pre-marked where my pumpkins are going to lay, so I can just kind of add a combination of these glues using the Fabri-Tac glue to kind of hold it in while the other glue sets up. My middle pumpkin, the log made it top heavy, so I had to paint a little tumbling tower block to put it on the back side because that log kept making my pumpkin tip over. So kind of think about that when you go to glue stuff on. So got that ready. We're just going to set everything right into place here. I'm kind of making them all a little bit catty-wonky on our sign. This turned out so cute. I love it. Once I get these into place, that makes this project complete. So I hope you enjoyed all my projects today. Did you notice we had 4 projects and not just 2 or 3? Thought I'd throw a little extra one in there for you all. Please leave me a comment down below. I know it's going to be hard to pick, but let me know which project is your favorite. Please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel to grow. And if you just walked in here, you're checking things out, or maybe you came out from over one of my other sweet friends who I'm collaborating with today, you came over from their channel, welcome to my channel. I hope you found a lot of inspiration here today. If you want to see more of this, please, before you click off, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. I really want to thank my sweet friends today, Lisa Marie, who is crafting my best life with Lisa Marie, Sandra, who is DIYs at the Schroven's Nest, and Emily, who is Farm Charm Chic here on YouTube. Make sure you check out their videos. Their links will be in my description box down below. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. We have so much fun fall inspiration for you all today that the excitement is just uncontainable. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. In order to win the battle in our mind with thoughts that are not in agreement with God's word, thoughts from the enemy like, "You're a loser. You can't do anything right. You'll never be healed." We have to identify those thoughts, and we have to restrict their access by speaking to that thought in Jesus' name. We don't need to get in a war with the enemy because, well, Jesus already defeated the enemy, but you have to be able to talk back to the enemy. You have to let the enemy know that you are under the protection of the Almighty God. You need to bind that thought or it binds you. In the Bible, book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 18, Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth, it will be loosed in heaven." So use these words. Use God's words. Face the enemy and tell him, "I bind that thought in Jesus' name." God's word is powerful. And as a child of God, Jesus lives in you, so you have the right to use the power of Jesus. You have the power of God to change these kind of thoughts in your mind. If you don't bind that thought, it binds you. Don't let the enemy have access to your mind. He's not omniscient. He doesn't know what you can think, but he can try and place thoughts in there to keep you from the victory that God has in store for you. God wants all of us to understand the reality that we can change our thoughts, which changes our actions, which changes our path, which changes our life. It helps keep our thoughts on Jesus. It keeps us knowing His truth. It keeps us living His truth. It keeps us where we will win the battle with these kind of thoughts in our mind. Walk in God's truth today and act on it. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.